Good evening, my fellow travelers on Spaceship Earth. It is I, and I am Guy. I'm coming to you live from Applewood Station, where it is a lovely 11 degrees Celsius and windy. Everyone knows it's windy. So, yep, here we are. Another glorious day in the Federation. Or something. All right. Heading over to my monitor, where we're going to be talking a little bit about my comic. I know, you're shocked. I'm going to work on my comic. I've been kind of stopped because I feel like we have quite a bit of work to do here. In the story. But honestly, there's a lot we can do here that we don't need to worry about necessarily having in the story. And we can do some rough build work. So I think I'm going to start doing some rough build work on this. And we're going to start talking about some things like the Thomas Bregman. So we're going to rotate the canvas 90 degrees. And I'm going to go into my blue liner here. And I'm going to kind of sketch out some ideas. The Bregman would be a liner ship of some sort. So we'd probably have some kind of wall that, indicates, oh man, this is lousy. It doesn't want to work at all, does it? What this? So we'll have something kind of looks like that. Something these kind of things, a little like that. Floor, maybe something kind of band-wise like this. All I'm doing here is just kind of sketching out an idea for what would be behind our guys in the Bregman. The Bregman's a freighter. So this is back to where I'll pull up the things that I tend to like to pull up to look at when we do stuff like this. And it's usually something Macrossian, because most of my backgrounds and things like that tend to come from Macross. And it's all because I mean, Macross is Macross, but it's also the bestest thing ever. I'm just saying, you guys can argue with me, but it won't go well because I'm not arguable on this one. I'm just not arguable. It's just not gonna happen. Sorry, dude. Macross is just too cool. So I'm going to try to pull up some of the background, pictures of different places on here, specifically looking really for drawings that would be interiors of stuff, right? For example, this is the interior of the pinpoint barrier system room, right? I could do something similar to this and just come up with things and widgets. And that's kind of what I'm looking for here, is just how do I do the widgets in the background that kind of look like this, right? So I'm going to bring that up here. Most of my designs tend to be Macrossian in design. They tend to be similar to Macross, just because that's where I'm inspired by. So and I don't need to work very hard on this because it's really not that big of a problem child. I mean, I'm not gonna do much here. Just gonna give it something that's interesting in the background so that it's not boring behind them. Kind of getting this idea and just sketching stuff in. I'm just adding things in the background here. Stuff that you might find on the back of a freighter wall. Nothing major or important, but you get some, panels and things like that. It's not bedtime yet. We still have work to do. You understand we still have work to do, right? Yeah, I get it. Yeah. There's a lot of discussion going on over in your world. I understand. Actually, I'll do this instead, I think. I like that a little bit better. Now, here's a trick I'm going to do. In the end, I'm going to fold this in two. Since we're only using it for one scene, and I'm not using it for anything else ever again, I'm going to draw it up. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, and I'm pretty much going to just let it go the way it is. We're going to fold right through the middle here, where I'm going to use it, and I'm just going to take two rectangles, and then I'm going to take them and then just cross them through the middle, and then put the floor here and the wall there, and this will be behind the other piece, and I'll add one other piece in here for the cockpit, and then we'll call it good. So this is the battle plan on this one. I'm not going to actually work very hard on this. It's not something I intend to do very. Hey there, Jackson, how you doing, my friend? Uh-oh. What is the size? Let's try something a little bigger. Really? Like, I make it black, but then it's like, oh, but you clicked the thing. So, no more black. I am so crooked on my drawing that, like, it makes the actual lines look crooked. I'm not sure what to think about that. I'm like, well, then that happened. Getting some work done since you can, huh? Since you're up late, you might as well get work done with me. I'm doing a background for my for the latest issue of Bellatrix, and I've got this freighter, and it's really not worth it for me to spend too much time on the freighter. So actually think I will take this guy and just continue on him. Might as well join me while you're here, though. Oh. And this will be the P.S. Thomas Bregman. Out of Pleiades. Okay, the drum thingy is starting to drive me crazy. All I hear is the drums. Doom, 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 doom. So I'm over it. I'm like, meh. All right. There we go. But maybe it should be 20. Oh, all right. Once we've done this, I can go back in with a normal pen and just kind of make it look like it was actually hand drawn, and kind of get some of the sort of rough, get a little bit of a rough feel to some of the lines, so that it doesn't feel quite so. That's probably too much. I had an interesting discussion today about AI on Geek Tank, as we were talking about, the ills and or not ills of AI. That was interesting. Because there were some very strong opinions, and rightfully so. It's interesting because AI offended me quite a bit. But now I'm not as offended anymore, because I don't know if I'm resigned to it or if I just accept it or what's the story, but whatever it is, I'm kind of like, well, yes, this is where we are now. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Probably a bad thing. But I mean, it's kind of like, well, what you going to do about it? It's kind of the way I felt about going back to college. I went back to college because I could die mad about this, or I could do something about it. All the things that have gone wrong for me over the years in college, I could do something about it or die mad about it. I don't want to die mad about it, I guess. So it's the thing. But it was interesting, the venom that came from one of the viewers. And understandably so. She's a longtime friend. I've known her for a very, very long time. And she's rightfully pretty ticked off about a lot of this stuff, and I'm not going to knock that. Right. Well, and I don't know if there's anything we can do about it anymore. I mean, this is a genie and it's out of the bottle, and I'm not 100% sure. There's no way, really, because it's open source, there's no way to put it back in the bottle. So I'm not sure what to say about it. You know what I mean? What brought this up was because I had, for my D&D game, I was starting to make songs using an AI thingy for my bard. I'm never going to sell that. I don't want anybody to even think about selling it. And I'm open about the fact that it's freaking made by AI. And that's kind of a thing. Now, what are you going to regulate? Yeah, I mean, but I've thought about this a lot. What are you going to regulate? How are you going to regulate it? Tell it not to use things that are already out there? Well, It's open source. You can't do that because it's not a thing that's putting it out there. Yeah. Do using AI is you know, and I think that you and my buddy are on the same wavelength on that one. And I'm not sure I disagree with you guys. You know what I mean? Like just using it to make songs for D&D. Relatively harmless. I'm not going to sell it or to give it away or anything like that. Indeed, I'm not going to but then I was thinking about it and I'm like, well, yeah, but didn't AI run you out of business? Isn't that kind of what happened? Because it did. You know, I'm not going to be doing public art anymore. Maybe. And it would be for music, not art. I've never used AI for art because it offends me so bad. But you're not wrong. I mean, I'm complicit now in hurting somebody else's music art, which is also art. I mean, it's not like that's not art. It's something to think about. That's what I mean. It's like that's somebody else's art. It's not my art, but it's somebody else's art. And in a way, it makes you think, did I do that? Did that? I don't know. I have a lot of thought processes about this. Yeah. Solid point. Solid point. It was a fun thing to do once. I don't know if I'd do it again. I may not. Because I think that's a solid point. You know? I don't know. But then there was the question that we were asking online that is going to be it's going to be the point they're going to make, which is, in a way, us artists use other people's artwork to make our art. And AI, I mean, back in the days when Kan and I were messing around with Midjourney just to see what it could do, because we were curious, I asked it to make a spaceship from Star Trek. I asked it to do a Klingon bird of prey. And what it created, I've never seen before. It's not like it took part of a Star Trek spaceship and glued it to another part of another thing. It's not a Photoshop cut and paste. So when you look at it that way, you're like, okay, now, but it didn't literally take a piece of somebody's art and glue it to somebody else's art. It's not like it took a part of the Mona Lisa and glued it onto a photograph of a Klingon bird of prey from Star Trek. So your next question, and this is the question they are asking, is, all right, how do you say that it's not extrapolating? It is more than 10%. And 10% is what we would legally call on the other side of copyright. So if I were to, like, let's say, which I would never do, by the way, this is all, we're all just doing thought processes here, right? But let's say I took your comic, well, that's the thing. It doesn't. Well, no, well, that's why I picked something that, let's be realistic here. We're talking about Star Trek. The odds of it being a spaceship in Star Trek that I've never seen is very, very small. In fact, since spaceships are sort of my jam, the odds of it being a spaceship from any space show are very slim. But I guess it could be, Joe Smith's spaceship that he made somewhere. But I mean, like, and just because I never saw his artwork or whatever. But the question then becomes, okay, but the AI didn't know that, right? It's not like it's specifically looking for things that Guy Davis doesn't know, right? Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to get at. That's the point that I'm trying to make. And by the way, I'm not arguing for AI. I am exploring where this argument is going to go. You know what I mean? Like, I'm exploring where this argument is going to head, because it's going to. Yeah, I know. I'm just saying that I want you to know I'm not arguing for AI in any way, shape, form, or fashion. I just want to make sure you know that. I'm just I We started talking about it, and I started thinking about it, and that's the problem. I know that the AI can search farther and faster. That's one of the reasons why I specifically picked something that is in my wheelhouse, right? Because, okay, if it took a picture of any spaceship from any TV show or movie in the last 100 years, first of all, spaceship. You're not going to find too many pictures of spaceships from 1750. So that will limit it down to only recently, the last 100 years or so. Two, this is totally my wheelhouse. So, though I am sure that there are lots of pictures out there that I have never seen, of spacecraft that I have never seen, it would be very rare. It'd be difficult. So at least should be able to identify parts, pieces, concepts, designs, theories. If I saw a picture and I was like, this is totally John Eve's work. This is totally the work of, you know what I mean? Like, that's the part that's scaring me in a way. Because it is. It's kind of frightening me that I had Midjourney make this spacecraft and I've never seen the like of it. I've not seen anything like it. It didn't just take a picture of a Klingon bird of prey and glue it to a Romulan warbird. It generated something I've never seen, which does worry me, because that means that you could argue it is not, or it's not stealing, it's interpolating. And that's the part that I'm concerned about. And that, I guess that's where I was coming from on this one, was if you could prove that it had stolen your artwork, you'd have a case. But if you can't identify whose artwork it stole from, and it doesn't look like anything that you can identify, then how? I mean, we all know it's being fed our work, but it's not producing things that are like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like they took one of my characters' heads and put it on one of your characters' bodies and then said it was okay. You know what I mean? It doesn't look like my character or your character, and it doesn't even have lines that fit. And so that's what worries me. That's the part that worries me. Because that could be an argument. You can make that argument. If you can't tell that it's your artwork, and it'd be the same thing if I took a page of your comic and redrew it in my style and everything like that, you wouldn't have much of a leg to stand on to say, but Guy stole my page of art. You would know, and I would know that I stole your page of art. And we would both know it's morally wrong, but legally you couldn't make a case. And that's what worries me. I think more than anything, that's what worries me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like sitting there going, damn, because that, if you can't make a case, then how do you know what it's doing? And how do you make legislation to stop it? That's going to be the problem. You can't just say, stop doing this. You know, you can't just say, you guys are legally obligated to stop copying our work. Okay, we've done that. Go on ahead. Prove it. Prove that we haven't. You know what I mean? That's the problem. And that's where I get worried. Being able to make Ivy songs, my Bard's songs, was both terrifying and enlightening. Just because that's just ridiculous. It's, I don't even know. I don't even know how to handle that. Right? Well, and some of it, that's kind of also what I was kind of exploring. Why is there apathy? And some of it is probably chalk upable to our doom crap that we've been doing for a long time, right? I mean, it gets votes, it gets money. I understand that, but it also makes, there are long-term consequences to constantly keeping everybody in fear and afraid of all the things that are out there, because then people get apathetic. The reason why nobody is that concerned now is because what are you going to do? Companies are super powerful. There's nothing you can ever do to stop them. It's a hopeless cause. It's capitalism. It's, you know what I mean? That's the problem, is people don't believe that they can do anything because we frankly have told them they can't do anything. You know, if you don't vote for this, then the companies will just totally take over. And then in order for us to succeed in those votes, now we have to do the, see, because the companies took over, this happened. So vote for this so that the companies can't do more. And, you know, then it gets up ranked again, and next time around it's, well, but see, somebody, this happened again, so the companies will take over more. And so now it's, we've got a lot of apathy. Oh yeah. That was what, that's why I'm leaving. That right there. Because looking at it from a capitalistic point of view, why in the world would you pay me money? I'm going to cost a ton of money more than AI, and I'm going to do it in 150. I'm going to cost them 150 times what AI would cost them, and I'm going to do it in 150 times the amount of time. It'll take 150 times longer. I can't compete. Now, but I will quantify this by saying I'm not stopping writing Bellatrix Rising. I will continue to write my comic because A, I have to write this thing. It must be written. But B, I don't think AI could draw a comic, but you'd still have to tell it where to go in the comic, because the stories that ChatGPT makes are all literally going to be rehashes of previous stories. So, yeah, that one's a little rough. I am backpedaling a little bit here because I'm actually not disagreeing with you in a lot of these things. I'm like, well, but then I am also trying to like think it through. Like, well, what is the What is the more morality is obvious. The morality failure here is clear. I don't have any problem with morality failure. The question is, how do you get a society to not join in on this morality failure? Especially since, as a capitalism, we have to make money or we die. Literally. I will create anyway. That is my battle plan. Here I am. Creating anyway. And no, that's white. Yeah. But what an interesting discussion to be made. We had a very fascinating discussion about this. Darcy was remarkably upset about it. I don't blame her. Also an artist. Her livelihood is threatened as well as mine. And I mean, one can kind of argue that I gave up. That one can't even argue. I gave up. I'm tired of fighting these large structures and being broke and poor and not having any money because I'm fighting the man, I'm frankly over it. I'm 51. I don't have a lot to show for it, Yeah, I mean, I'm going to create and I'm going to put the sign that says that I am AI free and I do not use AI for my work. And there's no AI here, except for, of course, the AIs in my story, because I've got AIs in my story, but they are not the problem because they are characters. Yeah, I don't know. I can't tell if I'm depressed because of the arguments we had today. You know what I mean? Like, I feel kind of like, And it was interesting and funny. There's also some other things to talk about. I can sit here and say I won't use AI anymore. And maybe I won't. But it was awful empowering to be able to make music. I'm not a musician. Never made music before, so it was kind of empowering. And it's sad to think that, yeah, you're probably right. Probably shouldn't, because all I'm doing is encouraging it. So really all I've just kind of done is agree that maybe I shouldn't make music. It's kind of like, that's sad. Because I don't have the spoons right now. There's no way I can make music any other way. I mean, it's not like I've got the ability to go out and learn. Yeah, but okay, so I would quantify that by saying I wrote the lyrics. So the AI made the music, but I wrote the lyrics, which was fun. So without the music, all I've got is a funny poem, which maybe that's not so bad either. But it was kind of cool to hear my poem sung by somebody, even if it wasn't the real somebody. And I think that's kind of part of and I think I'm depressed because of the conflicting thought processes here. One, I'm sad. I didn't want to have to leave art. That's sad. Makes me sad. And so, But you're right. It wasn't me making any music. I didn't make any music. With nothing in there that I made. I didn't make nothing. And I also think about this because people are making code using AI. Like they're coding up things making AI. And my child wants to be a coder. Yeah. And I don't have the resources for that. And I never really, I mean, I can't expect that I ever will, frankly. I mean, I'm 50 years old and I have always wanted to pay some artist to generate a song for me, and I've always wanted to pay some artist to paint a lovely picture for me, and I've always I have a buddy who actually worked with IDW for Transformers, and I would just absolutely love to pay her to make a full size commission of Blue Streak in blue, because that's like my favorite character from Transformers. And I've been waiting to save up enough money and waiting to save up enough money, and finally she retired. She dropped out. You can't get her to commit. You can't commission her anymore. She's not willing to do it. They burned her out doing the comics, which that's sad. But they burned her out, and so I've waited too long. Now I could commission somebody else, I'm sure. That's not the point. The point is, I spend a lot of time in my life thinking I could do that. And that's it. You're not wrong. There are a lot of things, but I mean, it was, like I said, it was empowering. Empowering to be able to have music made, even if it wasn't a human that did it. It was very empowering. And it's not cheap. I could go get an actual bard to do it. Probably be the more it would definitely be the more ethical thing to do. Just frustrating. It's frustrating because I can see both sides of this, and both sides are stupidly frustrating. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. Both sides of this are dumb and frustrating. Being on the side where ethically I probably shouldn't be using the AI at all. And that's frustrating because it means I'm back to, we'll never have music made. I'll never have any music ever made because I'll never be able to afford it. And that's not meant to sound fatalistic. Half my life is gone and I haven't been able to afford it yet. Now, anything can happen and things can change. And I'm not saying that I will never have the funds or never have the ability or never have any of that. I'm saying that the odds are pretty good that I won't. And we know that. And it's just interesting. It's sad in its own way, And maybe I should just write poems. There's nothing wrong with poetry. I'm absolutely with you on all of that, though. Your arguments are entirely valid. Most certainly. You have given me much to think about, Jackson. given me much to think about. As you oft do, which is why you're my buddy, because I really respect your opinion. Yeah. I mean, and I don't know. And it is a conundrum. It's hard. It's empowering, like I said, to be able to make artwork that you can't do. It's beyond your power. It's an empowering thing. I mean, I think about that a lot when I think about things like people who gripe about, um, yeah, you're still paying the price though, right? Because in a way, you're still paying, you're still paying a price. It's on the backs of artists everywhere, which is interesting to think about it that way. But I was thinking about this a while back on a lot of things. People who complain about TV shows, right? This episode of Star Trek sucks. I hate this episode. This was a bad episode. I don't like these people. I don't like this thing or whatever. And you think about it, and your first counter argument is, well, if you don't like it, go make one yourself. I happen to have been part of some of the fan film communities who made Star Trek fan films. And those fan films were amazing. They were amazing. There's Star Trek sets, complete duplicates of the set of the Enterprise out there. And it's amazing. And it's all because of the love of fans, but it took an army of fans and a ton of money that none of them had. You know what I mean? Like, they all had to put money in there and do it themselves because, of course, you cannot cross the copyright line. So if they don't pay for it out of their own pocket, if they try to fundraise or anything like that, then that's considered business work and you're violating the code. And so these kids had to build these things all by themselves with their own money. And it cost them a lot. And I keep thinking about stuff like that. Somewhere along the line on the show tonight, one of the viewers on our Geek Tank show referenced a TikTok page where they're making remakes of movie trailers, but instead of using the movie trailers, they've redone them and had the AI do them as 50s horror or 50s sci-fi. So using 50s sci-fi video effects, and somehow in this entire thing, they're making video that never existed before because it's Independence Day, but not with Will Smith, but instead with some kid who says all of Will Smith's lines, but is a 1950s child or something. You know what I mean? And I'm like, that's a lot of power. If you wanted to make a new episode of Star Trek, you could. All by yourself. You want to write an episode of Star Trek, and I've got to admit, that's a tasty thing for me. Not like I would do it, but I was part of the fan film community. I did help them make Star Trek. I helped make Star Trek in the fan films. The animated episodes of Farragut, 15% of that's me. There's a significant portion of the animated episodes of Starship Farragut that are my work. I did it. And so it's like, wow. Imagine the power. Yeah. Well, no, of course not. But I do. I'm a Trekkie. I mean, right? So, like, it's always been sort of, and I don't expect you to be, because, you are you and I are me. And that's the way it goes. And there's nothing wrong with that. Why is this, like, I am down to like a handful of frames here. Look how low of a frame rate I'm at. Yeah, and then you bring up that whole other argument. If AI could do it faster and you don't do it because you're morally against AI, why do you do it in Clip Studio? Because Clip Studio is just paper and pen but faster, That becomes another quagmire of things that make your head hurt. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not arguing that. Like, I am most certainly not saying that that's something we should be exploring. But it is a quagmire. And it's the same kind of quagmire. You don't see working on Clip Studio as a different thing than pen and paper, or you don't see using Clip Studio as different than AI. I'm going to end up doing an ethnography on this. I can already tell. Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, and maybe you don't, and that's also true, but let's be realistic here. I just drew this whole thing using the line tool and the circle tool and the rectangle tool with rounded edges. This whole picture was done that way. I mean, I sat here and came up with the concepts, but I've seen how you do your stuff, because of course you helpfully help us do stuff from time to time. Yeah. I couldn't do this good if I used paper. On the same token though, and as a slightly different thought process, yeah. Yeah. You're right. Someone who does AI is nothing without the AI, which is true. That's literally what we just talked about, right? Because I am not a musician. Without AI, I make no music. It doesn't matter how many lyrics I write. And it doesn't matter how funny the lyrics are. Now, I could write poetry, and that would be a thing, but I would never be able to write a song without AI. And that doesn't, but then you're back to the goal. I didn't write the song that I wrote for my D&D game was not written so that people would go, what an amazing composition you made. It was made to make them giggle and laugh at my character, because my character is a silly bard. To wit, it accomplished that goal. Now you have another quandary. Is the point of our art to have people think that we are awesome? Or is the point of our art to convey a story? Man, I think I'm making my whole position worse. I think I'm making myself feel worse. Right? I don't think I'm doing me any good. Because all of these arguments I'm making, I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound good at all. I don't like this. And I'm like sitting here going, Will, what have I done to myself? Oh, man. Why did I start this, Jackson? Why? 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 Why am I torturing myself? There, that looks much better. I like that better. I'm trying to decide whether I should make this triangle black or not. Right? I'm like, all I've managed to do is make myself woefully uncomfortable. This is what I have succeeded in doing. I'm just now totally uncomfortable. Well, thank you for being here with me, my friend. You've been a great sounding board. I've really enjoyed having you around. I mean, I always enjoy having you around anyway. However, I've enjoyed you on this particular journey because this is one where it's good to hear your voice on this, because I think your voice is very tempered in this one. So I'm glad to have you about. Even if I am only just making myself uncomfortable. All I've managed to do is just make me go, the hell am I talking about? Why am I here? Why am I doing this? What was I thinking? I don't want to do that. That's too thick. I'm sure it's saying something important. All right, I probably should go to bed. You probably should go to bed too, Jackson, because you're up way later than me normally. Or I know you're normally up this late, but still, I'm feeling, I don't know, I'm not feeling particularly daddy today, like I should be dadding people, but sometimes I dad people. Because I'm a dad. These things happen. It is a known quantity. So, all right. Well, I'm just drawing these lines in because these are important lines, man. I'm just saying. Makes it look like it's some kind of control panel back there. I mean, really, I shouldn't be spending this much time on the Thomas Bregman. The Thomas Bregman literally lives 2 whole pages. I'm spending so much time on the Thomas Bregman for no reason whatsoever. Why am I spending so much time on it? Because you never know. And it's literally only one thing. Like, it's one thing. Like, it's one scene. They don't even move. They're in the pilot house of the Thomas Bregman just kind of talking to each other, and then the Bregman gets destroyed. So I really shouldn't spend this much time on the Bregman. What I really need to do is redo the cargo containers so the Bregman can be carrying large versions of the cargo containers, because that would be useful. And then decide how the Bregman looks like as a starship, and then see whether I want to build her or not. I may not want to build her. I may just want to draw her out of rough shapes. Make something sort of rough look like her-ish, give or take. And then But I also should think about it because it's the first Pleiadian ship. So I need to kind of decide what is the design ethos of Pleiadian ships. Because we haven't seen Pleiadian ships before. And the Bregman's out of the Pleiades. So I'm gonna have to think this one through. And maybe the Bregman's more important than I think she is. Probably more important than I think she is. Which is fine. This quandary here that I just put myself into, this is a comfortable quandary. I like these quandaries. The question of whether I should design the ship more or not, that's a good quandary to be in. Stop talking about AI and get back onto designing starships like you should be. Because I loves to design starships. And it kind of makes me happy to think that I'll be designing a new ship for this comic book. That's a markedly better place. All right, but it is time for us to go. You need to go to bed. I need to go to bed. I really do appreciate you chatting with me tonight, Jackson. I promise if we do this in the future, I won't spend all of my time talking about AI. Just saying. We can talk more about your characters. And you know what? At some point, I wouldn't mind you coming onto the actual show and talk about characters and thoughts and world building and things like that. Because you've got a fascinating world. I'm curious. Anyway, but in the meantime, we are all moving along. And as always, I'm hoping that everybody out there has a wonderful evening and you all keep your eyes on the stars. And I'll talk to you later. Goodbye.